we need to think of a new advert for freebets.com.
Get your best betting offers from freebets.com.
Yeah, that'll do.
The following deals are now live.
This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store Forged Irish Stout. Ready to fight. Delighted today to be joined with Dan Rafael. I would say delighted, but I'm really not delighted to be talking about the news that we are talking about. Tyson Fury out of his clash with Oleksandr Usyk due to a cut sustained. Your initial reaction to the news, I suppose, a gutting one.
Well, first off, Lewis, I'm not delighted to be speaking to you about this topic either. So on that situation, look, it's a huge disappointment. I mean, I think the whole boxing world has waited very patiently for a long time to see an undisputed heavyweight champion, and we got over the hurdles of there being problems of it not getting made in April of last year. Them finally taking care of their business. You know, obviously they both had their interim fights. Usyk, took care of his business with Dubois. There was some controversy with the phantom low blow. Then we had Fury go through his scenario with Francis Ngannou and almost lose and get knocked down and come out of that fight with his reputation a little bit beat up because he looked so bad. And a lot of people thought that he didn't win. In the end, though, that fight had been signed. It's announced. And everybody's ready for the fight. It's in 2 weeks. I mean, this was probably the last week of Fury sparring. I mean, most guys, when they get ready for major fights, don't spar the week of the fight. So you got to figure this was the last, I don't know if I won't say it's the last rounds or the last session, but close to it anyway. And it happens. I mean, it's unfortunate. I saw the photograph that the Tyson Fury team put out. So, I guess that's evidence. I don't doubt it happened. I mean, I think that Fury was taking this fight very seriously just based on the fact there'd been a complete shutdown of all of his social media. Hasn't done a lot of interviews. Frankly, it's been not a big promotion because the guys have been doing their thing. They haven't been doing a lot of interviews. There's been no photos from the camp. So on the one hand, it's disappointing for the folks in our business, but from their point of view, they clearly were locked down on this fight. And you just got to feel terrible for everybody involved. The Fury people, the Usyk people, everybody.
Well, I suppose this announcement does also come with, and I'm not sure how much you sort of follow the rumours that have been coming out in the UK, especially this week. Johnny Nelson, working with Sky, talking on TalkSport, was saying about Fury is getting handled in camp, and all sorts of rumours about obviously the one was that Opataya dropped him and things like that. And with these rumours coming out, people gonna then, what do you sort of make of the conspiracies that people are now going to make from that?
If you want conspiracy, I'm not your guy. I don't believe the rumors about the Opataya situation at all. He left the camp because he was getting ready for his own fight on the card. I don't put a lot of stock in that. Could Fury been having a hard camp and getting knocked around a little bit? Yeah, it's possible, but both things can be true. He could have been having a rough camp, and he could also have suffered a legitimate cut. I've been doing this for too long. I've had too many training camp stories and too many rumors and all that. You know what? What happens in the camp happens in the camp. And if you go into the ring, it doesn't matter. And I have no reason to believe that the cut is not real based on everybody I've spoken to and seen the photograph. So I don't, it's fun to talk about and to, get up in arms about, but I don't put a lot of stock in the bullshit rumors from the training camp. So, I'm one to usually think that the most direct way to get to one spot from another is a direct line. And the best thing I can see is that the heavyweight champ of the world suffered a cut in his training camp 2 weeks before the fight, and it forced the fight to be postponed. And by the way, for those who are not familiar with history, this doesn't rank as even the biggest heavyweight undisputed championship fight where a cut forced the fight to be postponed, because the first thing I thought of when I heard about this situation was what happened way back in the day when I was a little boy in the early 1970s, when Muhammad Ali was supposed to fight George Foreman, then the undisputed heavyweight champ, and George Foreman suffered a cut, and the Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire got postponed for 6 weeks because of it. So this is not, the first rodeo for those who have followed boxing history to see this type of injury push back, a huge fight. Hopefully it can be rescheduled. Seeing the picture of the cut, I looked at that and I thought, boy, that's a bad cut. That's not just a little nick. That's not like I need a stitch and I'm going to be sidelined for, a couple of weeks. That seemed to me, again, I'm no plastic surgeon, not a doctor. but that looked like a gaping wound in a bad spot. And that would be, I would think, at least a couple of months at the least. That could be a 3-month, 90-day kind of cut, it seems to me. Not to mention, once you're able to heal from the cut and go back to train, you're not going to just be suddenly cleared and then get in the ring next week and do it. They're going to have to resume your training in some capacity, maybe not at the same full blast level he's probably been going at, but there's going to have to be a recalibration. There's going to have to be some sparring, some preparation. So, I don't know when this fight's going to happen. Hopefully it'll be rescheduled in short order. Maybe the early summer, I guess, I suppose is possible. It's boxing, we don't get nice things.
I suppose now what does happen to, especially on Oleksandr Usyk's side, we did see Alex Krasuk posted an Instagram story, and it's Usyk sparring right now. There are talks of potentially Filip Hrgovic coming in on short notice to replace him, obviously being the IBF mandatory as well. What do you really understand, and what do you think could happen now?
My understanding is absolutely 100%. There is conversation internally about the prospect of that being the case. I know for a fact that they are discussing that. They have reached out, to Team Hrgovic to at least see what his availability is. I don't know what the result of that conversation or conversations or however that went down was, but certainly, look, it sucks that the heavyweight championship fight's postponed. But obviously, if you can keep the date alive and still put on, by the way, a worthy fight. Now, granted, Usyk versus Hrgovic is not the same as Usyk against Fury. Fair enough. But it is the mandatory. It's going to have to be dealt with by somebody. Hrgovic has an agreement already in place with the Saudis. He fought on the December 23rd day of reckoning card. He stopped his opponent, Mark Demore, in the first round. He came out of that fight with no particular injuries. He had gone through a full camp. It hasn't been that long since that fight. Now, it's not like I don't know what his daily habits have been, if he went back to train right away or, he went and laid on a beach for a week or 2 or 3, who knows? But, again, they have to assess the situation. Number one, find out, is he in physical condition to be ready to have this type of caliber fight in 2 weeks' time? Training for an Oleksandr Usyk compared to any normal heavyweight is a whole different story because of his style and his southpaw stance and his technical ability. Preparing for an Usyk, I think, is a lot more difficult, it would seem, than preparing for other excellent heavyweights, but guys who are basic, the same kinds of guys that you've been facing before. In other words, you can talk, let's take Anthony Joshua. He's obviously a top heavyweight, but it would seem to me that to prepare for him on shorter notice would not be as challenging as preparing for the style of an Oleksandr Usyk on the short notice. It's not a knock on Joshua, where you're getting ready for a guy that's a normal, jab 1-2, great, he's really good at it. Usyk's a whole different ballgame. So there's what's the desire on behalf of Hrgovic, even if he feels like he can be ready and in shape to go. There's that. They have to obviously strike a deal, make sure that everybody is taken care of. Hopefully it will happen, because at the very least, that's still a good heavyweight fight, number one. Yeah. And number two, you keep the undercard going, which has been a good undercard. There's plenty of other guys that are getting ready for the fight. And it's just always terrible when you have a big event and an injury to one fighter prevents the entire event from taking place, which impacts the livelihoods of everybody involved. Not to mention, I'm sure there's people that have made arrangements to make the trip, the travel, etc. It's just never a good thing. But look, you've been around long enough to know that these things happen. Fights get postponed or canceled on a regular basis. So this is not the first one. It just happens to be, such a big one that it kind of hurts a little more than your normal postponement.
Yeah, definitely. And well, Dan, I just want to say thank you for quickly joining me on this quick Zoom interview to get a reaction that I've done it in a previous interview. It's not really one that we wanted to be doing. But just quickly, I suppose, obviously, I did recently listen to your podcast, your interview with Ben Shalom. And obviously, you got your newsletter as well. So if you wanted to give that a plug, you're more than willing to do so.
Yeah, appreciate that. So yeah, it's the Fight Freaks Unite newsletter on Substack. You go to Dan Rafael at Substack.com, and you punch in your email address, you can get my newsletter. And like you mentioned, we do the podcast, me and my partner TJ Reeves, twice a week. I did have because the interview went longer than I had anticipated, and Ben Shalom was so interested in talking about the different elements of boxer that we did like over 30 minutes. So we just made that a separate episode that you referenced. So we have a great time. So we do it twice a week with the occasional special episode, and that is available on any of your normal podcast platforms. It doesn't cost anything. Just hit it up and subscribe and get the alerts. So we have a blast doing it, and I'm glad that people enjoy it.
Absolutely. All links will be in the description. Dan, thank you for speaking to me. Appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully aren't always doing too many interviews at this style, mate. Thank you.
Well, Lewis, I look forward to talking to you when we get to talk about when they reschedule the big fight.
Absolutely, definitely, mate. Top man, mate. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.